Welcome again, everyone, to another one of my Star Wars book reviews, and today we've got a big one. The very first book in the new Jedi Order series, Vector Prime, written by R.A. Salvatore. Those of you who have been following my series might remember that R.A. Salvatore was the author of the novelization for Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which at the time, you may remember, I said something to the effect of, both that and Terry Brooks' novelization of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was a lot like watching someone try to put lipstick on a pig. Yes, they made it better. Yes, they made some improvements, but overall, it was unfixable, but god darn it, they tried, and God bless them for the effort. But the new Jedi Order series was a huge event in the expanded universe, and huge for Star Wars fans everywhere. It was a large 19 novel series and various other offshoots as well, short stories and novellas and whatever, all focused on this one story, this one idea, this one conflict, being the galaxy's war, the New Republic's war with the Yuuzhan Vong, a threat unlike anything that had ever been seen before in Star Wars. And I'm not going to say that every book in the series is great. I'm not going to say that every book in the series works. What I will say is that I felt like this was a daring new direction for the expanded universe and a welcomed breath of fresh air to have the New Republic deal with something that isn't some offshoot of the Empire. Pretty much most, if not all, of the Star Wars books preceding the new Jedi Order series really dealt with the New Republic fighting the Empire. And that started with the Thrawn trilogy, and just they kept trying to get more and more life out of the conflict with the Empire. And after a while, it's like, dude, isn't the Empire dead yet? I mean, my God, it just feels like they keep losing and losing and losing. And they lose more and more power, and, each new warlord gets defeated, and starting with Thrawn and then Admiral Dala and various other ones along the way. And it gets to a point where it's like, good Lord, isn't it over yet? I mean, haven't they been beaten down, enough? Because they're really the underdogs now. But I felt like creating the Yuuzhan Vong accomplished a bunch of things. Most notably, giving the New Republic a gigantic threat for them to worry about. Who is the Yuuzhan Vong? I should explain that one. The Vong are a warrior culture / species from outside of the galaxy that have come to invade. And they basically start a new galactic-wide war when they invade the New Republic and try to conquer worlds under the control of the New Republic, and give the Jedi and the Republic almost too much for them to handle. The Yuuzhan Vong are nothing like the Empire. They're very warrior-like, very sadistic, and even masochistic to their own selves, using self-mutilation as a badge of honor almost. They are religious zealots and don't like technology. So no Star Destroyers, nothing like that, but they do have various spaceships called the Coral Skippers and their own war machines that are based on organic technology, which is not unheard of in the world of science fiction. Actually, when I was reading the book the first time, the first thought I had, actually, it's weird that I'm wearing the shirt right now, which I swear is a coincidence, but I'm just saying it now as it comes to my mind. G.I. Joe the movie, the 80s animated film, which introduced the backers of the Cobra organization, which turned out to be a weird, race of snake people with organic technology. So all of their ships, all the creatures and everything, it's just all their weapons are all based on some kind of organically grown technology that they developed over thousands and thousands of years. My first question right off the bat was, okay, why didn't you lend any of this to Cobra Commander? I felt like you could have used, you have these giant sandworms that go into battle with you and these flying dragonfly things. I feel like Cobra Commander could have used some of those. I'm just saying. There's also Nemesis Enforcer, who's a giant bat-like bodyguard that gets into a fight with Sergeant Slaughter at the end of the movie. One of the coolest moments from the movie. And it's like, Cobra Commander probably could have used some of this stuff. Just throwing that out there. But anyway, when I read it, when I was first exposed to Yuuzhan Vong, that was the first thought I had when I looked at their technology. I'm like, oh, it's like Cobra Law. They're like, and I fully understand Cobra Law, not the greatest name ever. There's a whole story behind that, which I won't get into why they settled on that name, but yeah, the Yuuzhan Vong, that was the first thing they reminded me of, was Cobra Law and the organic technology, and hating, the mechanical, combustion-based, or any kind of, like, no starships or planes or anything like that. We're purely organic, and we base all of our technology on organic life. And they're also, I guess there's a little bit of Klingon in there too. Like, that was kind of my thought. There's like a dash of pepper, of the Klingon pepper, is sprinkled on through the Yuuzhan Vong. But this warrior race that is just bound to subjugate the entire galaxy that we know and force them to their will. It's like, oh man, these guys aren't playing around. They are, they're like I said, they're not playing around. They're looking to destroy everything in their path. And the book starts off with a somewhat low-scale threat that Princess Leia goes into to kind of play peacemaker towards God, what's his name? Amon Noor, who ends up being like the first Yuuzhan Vong, who kind of jumpstarts the conflict and everything. But what begins as this kind of low-level, kind of peace treaty, ambassador type conflict turns into yet another galactic scale war. And there's various other things going on throughout this particular book. We find out that Mara Jade has been infected with a disease that is slowly killing her. This was inflicted on her by the Yuuzhan Vong as an experiment, and that's something that carries on through future books. We find Anakin Solo, I should say, one of the Solo children, the youngest of the Solo children, and his own lack of self-confidence in his abilities of the Force, and how he deals with that, especially given how the book ends. The Solo twins also play a big part, with Jaina becoming a more experienced pilot. She ends up joining Rogue Squadron in future books, which is kind of neat. And Jason has his own ideology and philosophies about how what the Jedi's role in the galaxy should be, which comes at odds a little bit with Luke. And that's actually another major thing, as with this growing conflict, what's the role of the Jedi supposed to be in the galaxy? Are they strictly supposed to be peacekeepers and warriors? Do they need to reform the Jedi Order? Given that the book series is called The New Jedi Order, I think you know what direction it's going to go in. But you get all these differing opinions and conflicts on what the Jedi should be. Kip Duran, a little shitbag from the Jedi Academy trilogy, he has his own opinions about what the Jedi should do, and he's very much like, we're the most powerful, so we should be the ones telling everybody what to do. You've got Luke, who pretty much wants to keep it. It's like, no, we just go out on missions, and we don't really want to get too involved with politics. And then you have others. Jason actually initially feels like we need to go off and become hermits. And we need to go off and meditate and learn what our role in the Force is. And all these differing opinions, which is ultimately going to result in the rise of a new Jedi Order. But you can see it right now. Like, the New Republic is fairly complacent ever since they defeated the Empire for good after the events of the Hand of Thrawn duology. And the New Jedi Order is very disorganized, with pretty much all the separate Jedi going off and doing whatever the hell they want. So, a lot of disorganization here, and this actually plays into something that was alluded to in the expanded universe, and why the Emperor built the Death Star. You would think it was because, he wants to subjugate all the planets in the galaxy to his will, but in actuality, as it's explained in the expanded universe, no, he wanted, and that's part of it, sure, but he also wanted to protect the galaxy from any outside threats from outside the galaxy and outside the boundaries. And he wanted to have super weapons and order and various other things to protect the galaxy from any potential outside threats. He was also a gigantic racist and didn't trust anybody outside of the galaxy as well, in addition to all the alien races within his own galaxy. And that was also something that Thrawn was concerned about, and he believed in the order that the Empire provided, the order, the structure, and the protection and the security. Things that the New Republic are striving for, but they're also kind of getting in their own way with a lot of political infighting, and the Jedi being disorganized and various other things. So the galaxy is almost ripe for this kind of threat to kind of come in and cause problems. And they start attacking planets. They start making slaves out of people. They start, making all sorts of problems. And actually, a huge problem for the Jedi is that the Vong are creatures that are basically immune to the Force. Jedi cannot sense them, and they cannot use the Force to inflict their will on the Yuuzhan Vong. No mind tricks on these bitches. So it makes for a completely different threat that the Empire did not provide. And like I said, by this point, the Empire conflict was pretty much old hat. So to get a threat that is so radically different from anything we'd ever seen in Star Wars, like I said, was a huge breath of fresh air. And to do it over the course of so many books made the threat seem that much bigger. And it really felt like something you would see in a comic series. The big comparison that's coming off the top of my brain is the Age of Apocalypse, which spanned across various X-Men titles and had various different stories and different characters all going on at once, all under the umbrella of this huge conflict. And various different authors wrote these books. It wasn't just one author doing everything. So you had a bunch of different stories all under this one conflict. And it was an epic event, to say the least. And I felt like Vector Prime was a very good starting point for that huge event, and provided a lot of memorable moments and some very sad moments, which, spoiler territory, I am going to spoil the biggest development that came out of Vector Prime. During one of the conflicts with the Yuuzhan Vong, this is the first book in the series, so it comes very early, Chewbacca is killed saving Anakin Solo on a planet that's getting ready to be scorched as a moon crashes into it or whatever, and they're trying to get civilians off the planet, and Chewbacca, good old Chewie, is killed in the crossfire, which has a profound effect on Han Solo, who is a depressed mess after losing his best friend, and even goes as far to blame his son for the death of Chewbacca initially, adding to Anakin's own feelings of inadequacy and guilt, which carries on into the second book, right away as he gets paired off with Mara Jade, but I'll get there at a later date. And losing Chewbacca, I mean, God, you people are just heartless monsters. How dare you? How dare you kill Chewbacca? That is so cruel and heartless to do that. That's like, I mean, Luke, Leia, and Han, losing them would be sad in a book or a movie or any other form, but there's also kind of like, they're the big heroes, so losing them would be, again, it would be very sad and very depressing, but almost strangely appropriate in a way. If you're going to kill any of the heroes, it would be one of those three. Mainly because they're the ones that are always putting themselves in the front lines and always the ones leading the missions and leading by example. So you kind of, if you're going to kill any of the characters, you would expect it to be one of those three. Doing it to one of the sidekicks, like Chewbacca, or even C-3PO and R2-D2, just seems like cruel, because the sidekicks, when they're not annoying, like Jar Jar Binks or Robin, when Robin is poorly written, or Godzuki, to throw that fucking abomination under the bus, bringing my old kaiju fandom into this. But when the sidekicks are lovable, they really do feel like the heart of the team, and Chewbacca always kind of had that feeling to him. It's like, look, he's not the most dynamic character. He doesn't have that much of an arc to him, but he's such a warm presence that you just love having him there. And when you kill him, it's like, oh, you monsters, how dare you kill Chewie? How dare you kill my Chewie? Which, at the same time, it works in this great way in that it puts heat on the Vong right away, because it's like, those motherfuckers killed Chewie. They killed Chewbacca, those monsters, those heartless beasts. Damn it! But probably the single most heartbreaking death in the expanded universe, because I know that Lucasfilm kind of had a policy, at least early on, that they would not kill any of the classic trilogy characters. That was a policy that they had in the early books, and for whatever reason, they broke it in this one. And some could look at it as like kind of a callous way to sell more books, but as a starting point for these enemies, this new threat, I think it works very effectively. And Han Solo's reaction to it is almost more depressing than the death itself, because he is just devastated and heartbroken over it. And it's like, it sucks to see Han that way, but it's also really believable to see him that way. And even him snapping at Anakin, his own son, it's kind of like, it's harsh and it's hard to read, but you kind of understand it as well. It's this horrible tragedy that's fallen on everybody's feet, and Han is just looking for somebody to blame. He even snaps at Lando at one point, so blaming him. It's like, we wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for you, and various other things going on. So this series is off to a very heartbreaking start, and it's definitely memorable, to say the least. So that is the first book in the New Jedi Order series, the first of 19. I definitely plan on covering the next 18. I don't know how I'm going to break that up yet. I'm definitely going to do more than one book in a review when I cover the New Jedi Order series. But that was just the starting point. This is basically the prelude to what is going to happen over the course of this conflict. 18 more books to go. So, again, I don't know how I'm going to break it up, but I am definitely going to cover more of these and review more of these, as there is a lot to cover when it comes to the New Jedi Order series. Part 2 of the New Jedi Order series reviews won't be coming next month, or probably not even in March. But I'm definitely going to try and get through all 19 books this year. So, again, it's one review a month, so we'll see how that goes. But in any case, yeah, I highly recommend Vector Prime. I thought it was a very strong start to this series, and got it off on the right foot, and I think ended up being one of the better books in the New Jedi Order series. But like I said, there's a long way to go before we're even remotely done with this thing, so stay tuned for more.